Salvete. We are going to be talking about verbs now, and verbs are super important for understanding a lot of the Latin grammar that you're going to be encountering in Virgil and Caesar. I'm going to start with just introducing a few terms that I'm going to be using as we talk about these verbs, and also show you how these verbs appear in the dictionary before we start going through each of the different verb systems. So, talk about Latin verbs. One term that you are familiar with is tense, and tense means basically time, the time, and it has a little bit of aspect of an action as well, but time is the main thing that tense refers to. We have used 6 tenses in Latin. The tenses in Latin are present, something happening now; perfect, something that was a completed action in the past; imperfect, an uncompleted action or an ongoing action in the past; pluperfect, which is an action that happened, a completed action that happened before another action in the past. So in other words, it's the really past. And then there's 2 futures. There's the plain future, something that will happen, and then there's the future perfect, which is something that will be completed in the past. So notice all the perfect, anything that has perfect on it, has that idea of it's been completed or it's going to be completed. The other ones are more of an ongoing nature, and so those are the 6 tenses that are in Latin. So I'm going to go through each of those tenses. Another term that we're going to be using quite a bit is voice, and there are 2 voices in Latin. There is active voice and passive voice. And the difference between the 2 are: active is when the subject is doing something or being something, and passive is when the subject is receiving something. So you say, I hit John. I am the doer, okay? And this is an active use of the verb because I am doing the hitting. There's the verb right there, hit. He's receiving it, he's a direct object. But if you say, I am hit, now this becomes passive. I'm still a subject, but I am receiving the hitting. So I am hit, like by John. This is passive. Okay, so I hit in English is active. I am hit, that's how you make it passive. So doing, receiving. Another term is mood. And mood shows a quality of the verb that tells us something about how the verb is happening. Let me talk about the different moods in Latin. There is the indicative mood, and this mood indicates factual, actual actions or statements. Okay? Things that actually are happening or will happen or happened. Indicative. And that's the mood we use most of the time in our practice in class. Another mood is, let's see here, another mood that is very important is the imperative mood. That's commands. Anytime you are commanding somebody to do something. So indicative would be something like Caecilius ambulat. Caecilius is walking, right? But if I tell Caecilius to walk, I say ambula, Caecili, ambula, then I'm saying walk. That is the imperative. Another important mood is the infinitive mood. That's when you have, there's no person there's no subject of this verb. but it just means, to do something, to walk. It's just the verb without any people or person or number on it. So, like, I like to walk. Usually you have to use a helping verb with this or something. Amo ambulare, or mihi placet ambulare, to walk. So in English, it's just the to, plus the verb. That's the infinitive mood. And then we also have the subjunctive mood. And whereas the indicative mood expresses factual statements, the subjunctive is more like the mood of unreality. It's things that could be or might be, but they're not actual yet. Things that, it's kind of like a future, things that may happen, or things that you want to happen. Use the subjunctive for this. And it's using quite a few instances in Latin, which we'll talk about some more later, but the basic idea of it is it's the mood of unreality. I'll give you an example. When you say eiamus, let's go, okay? That's different than imus. Imus means we are going, it's factual, but eiamus, let's go. It's unreality, it hasn't happened yet. Until we start going, it's saying let's do this. This is something we want to do, but we haven't actually done it yet. So eiamus is subjunctive. Incipiamus, let's start. That's another subjunctive. And then also, when you have verbs in the form of the participle, you could say that participle is a mood, and participle is just basically a way of making a verb into an adjective. So it's a verbal adjective, and we'll talk some more about that too. So these are some important terms that we want to have under our belts as we start talking about verbs. Take a look at this page in your packet, and we did this with nouns, where we talked about how the noun appears in the dictionary. Well, let's talk about how a verb appears in the dictionary. So this is a verb porto, portare, portavi, portatus, and I have made this one long just to underline it. There's other long ones in here that I haven't indicated, but this is the only one I want you to really indicate. Now, each of these forms of the verb has a reason for being in the dictionary, and Latin dictionaries are uniform in always putting these verbs in the same order. So all Latin dictionaries start with the first person singular, and when I say first person, I mean the I form. First person is I, second person is you, third person is he, she, or it, and the singular form is I. A first person plural would be we. So they always, because it's sometimes this form is irregular, they always put the first person singular form first in the dictionary. The I carry form, the I verb. And in the present tense, and in the indicative mood, in the active voice. Okay? So this is first person singular, present tense, it's active voice because I'm doing the carrying, and it's indicative mood because it's factual, I'm actually doing the carrying. So porto. The second verb that's listed, the form of the verb, is portare, which is the infinitive. It's a present infinitive, and this is the to carry. So this is I carry, this is to carry, portare. They always put the infinitive second. Then they put the first person singular form of the perfect tense as the third entry. And they call these principal parts, by the way. This is the first principal part, is the first person singular present tense. The second principal part is the infinitive. The third principal part is the perfect tense. So this is I carried, and the reason why they list the perfect tense here is because its stem is a little different than the present stem. We'll talk about that. And then the final form, the fourth principal part that they mention, is the participle form. Specifically, what we call the perfect, that's its tense, passive participle. And the reason why it's listed in the dictionary is it has a different stem also than the others. I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick up the rest of this in the next